Hello and welcome to Finding Focus. This is a new podcast made by me, Christina Webber. I am a visual artist based in Edinburgh. This essentially aims to be a really informal chat between me and a handful of photographers that I admire, talking a bit about how they kind of found their way into the photography industry and on a particular project that I have asked them to talk about. So the first few episodes are with a photographer and good friend of mine called Zoe Hamill. Zoe was selected for the New Irish Works exhibition in 2019. She's also been involved with the New Photographers Guild at street level. Zoe co-founded Fresh Focus at Stills with myself and Erin Semple, and there's a load of really interesting projects to have a look at on her website, including Map Without Words, Tony's Ponies. That's all at zoehamill.com. This is definitely an experiment at this stage, and due to the current situation, I do not have access to some of the equipment that I would like, but I thought it would be a good opportunity to just get the first few out there anyway, as I think people could use a pint and a chat right now. So please let me know what you think. I really want to make these better and continue to improve, so any support or advice would be great. That being said, I am well aware that the background noise situation is absolutely dire, and I apologise in advance, and I'll probably apologise at the end also. Please bear with the extreme pub noise that you're about to witness. I've probably already introduced you mildly, but it would be nice to hear in your own words. Could you maybe just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you're into, etc. Off you go.
Okay. You'd think I would have practiced this since the last time, and I have not.
I should mention that this is the second time recording this, because our first recording ended up in an 8-hour drinking session.
Yes. Which this one cannot.
These things
I've got
happen.
somewhere to go. So this one
too.
I'm a photographer. I studied in Belfast School of Art, graduated in 2010. Whenever I studied, I was part of the first year that did the photography degree, BA degree, which I think was really good. I really enjoyed my degree, but it was definitely like we were kind of the guinea pigs, but in a good way. So that was 2010. Graduated, didn't really do anything for a few years. And then it's only sort of since I moved to Edinburgh about 5 years ago that I got a bit more into photography and doing more of my own work and had time to focus on that again. And I work in stills part-time, freelance photographer, like collections and museums and dead things.
Lovely.
That's my vibe.
That's a strong vibe to have. There's lots of interesting stuff to pick out of that, actually. First thing, you mentioned that there's a 5-year gap between graduating and then really progressing with making personal work or with photography. Maybe if you could just expand on that really briefly for anyone that's graduated recently and is in that weird kind of limbo between education, where everything is so pressurized and graded and kind of so high pressure, and then in that void afterwards of
when you get chucked out into the world
of real life. If you could just talk a bit maybe about that would be lovely.
Well, I think definitely for me, like whenever I went to uni, I really enjoyed my course, but I didn't really have any concept of what it was, and in a sense didn't necessarily appreciate it because I didn't know anybody who'd been to university before. And so I didn't really know how it worked, and I sort of had this expectation that you went to university and then you just sort of came out and you were an artist or something, because I had no reason not to think that, because I didn't know any artists, so it was fine. So I graduated, and it was like, I'd say the 2 years after graduation were some of the worst I've ever had, easily, because you go from like having a student loan, having a structure, having access to facilities, having a reason to make work,
also having tons of pals.
And hanging out with people and just like meeting up with people, seeing people every day, and then graduated and that summer was kind of like a wee pretend world where like my loan was still existing. And then like come September I was like, oh shit, okay, and like had to go and sign on, was unemployed, my loan had run out and I needed to pay rent, and I realised that there were no jobs. Not even that there weren't any jobs, I didn't know what kind of jobs I wanted or like where to look for them or anything about them. I remember going to like job seekers and being like, I'd like to be a photographer, please. And them just being like, can you do cleaning? I'm like, yes I can do cleaning. Didn't get any cleaning jobs either. But yeah, just that confusion and like really not knowing what was going on, and then having to like everybody does, just having to work. Not what everybody does, but most people have to do. You just have to work to pay rent, and then realising that for me, if I'm working full-time or part-time to pay bills, I really don't have the energy to make anything creatively. I'm not cut out for it. I know that people can. I think for me it's incredibly hard, and I find it really tough to make anything while also doing really shitty jobs that I really hate it, and trying to get by on as few hours as possible, just so that I didn't have to go there. So yeah, there was like a couple of years of paying off a massive overdraft from a student bank account, and generally being pretty miserable. And yeah, that feeling of like going back to the year after I went back to our degree show, and it was one of the worst days of my life ever. Was going back and like being hit with that sort of, it's a year later, what have you done? Have you even done anything? Like, but what have you achieved? And like it really, really, I think I didn't realise the expectation I had of like, oh, I'll graduate and then I'll do loads of my own work and I'll make loads of photographs and I'll do all this stuff. And I was like, you haven't done any of that. What have you done? What have you achieved?
But that's okay, and I think that's why it's so important to hear people say that, because I was exactly the same. I remember, there was this, I was consistently very aware of the pressure to achieve creatively, but also the very, very prominent knowledge that I wasn't doing anything, and I didn't have the resources, like, emotionally
but
or
then beating
physically.
yourself up because you're like, why are you not doing stuff? Even though you're like, I'm fucking exhausted, that's why I'm not doing anything. But it's like,
and broke. It just wasn't viable. But that doesn't change the fact that there is this consistent pressure and knowledge of how significantly you feel you are underachieving, and it's because at uni at school, and generally, I guess, when you're young, you're consistently pressured to succeed and to get good grades and to do the best you can, and then suddenly, when literally no one is putting the pressure on you, you just kind of turn it on yourself.
Yeah.
Only focus on what you're not doing.
And I think as well, like a lot of it is the mystery. So I'd look at people who were making their own work or who were getting, books published or solo exhibitions, and I'd be like, what the fuck are they doing? Like, how does this work? I don't understand. Yeah. And like just that sort of powerless feeling of like, I don't understand how they're making this happen and I'm not. Then you turn that on yourself and you're like, oh, you're not, because you're not good enough, because you're not achieving those things because your work's not good enough. And I mean, the work has to be good, but it's not always the most important thing either. I think I've come to realise that in a good way, that I think it's good to know that and not beat yourself up so much.
And like, especially with social media and online kind of personas, it's very easy if someone's good at marketing themselves to believe that they do have everything figured out and that everything's easy for them. Half the time that person will be absolutely shitting themselves like beneath all of that and struggling. But it's easy to not see that side of it, and that's kind of what I guess this podcast is about, is to try and, I guess, demystify the idea that there is an easy route, because I don't think there is, really.
Or like the thing of like not realising, it took me years to realise that people have other jobs. I didn't even realise that for a long time because nobody spoke about it, or like nobody was. Well, a lot of people, some people don't have other jobs as well. But even when they do, they sort of like don't mention it, or they keep it on the sides. Like
because there's a weird shame attached to it, even though it's totally normal.
ridiculous.
It's literally there are not enough jobs in the creative industries. There are not any really, and so people have to earn money.
But then even that, feeling like I wasn't a photographer because I was working in a cafe full time. So I was like, oh well, not really a photographer then, am I? What about all these people who are making work, and they've got this and they've got that, and then not realising that they probably have a day job as well. Like, it's fine. And then if you know that, then you're like, oh right, okay, cool. Well then I have a chance.
It levels the playing field somehow.
Yeah.
Exactly. You mentioned that you like collections. What is it about that appeals to you? How do you get access to collections? Like, what is your kind of engagement with that side of things?
I think that started from, it was kind of in my degree show, my final project. I went into museum storerooms, and actually the idea was sort of like to go into, you know, like the V&A or like the big name museums and like see what's in the background, because I'm interested in that idea of, it's only like 4% of museums collections that ever get seen by the public.
Oh, wow.
Like, it's tiny, and there's just storerooms and storerooms and storerooms, and I kind of like the idea of things being hidden away, but also there's something that I find quite, you know, there's a power there too. It's like, how do people decide what goes on show and what doesn't, and like who's making those decisions. And yes, but I ended up, because I couldn't get access to any of those places, I ended up going into like little tiny museums, which actually I'm really glad, because I think it turned out so much nicer. So I went into like Ballymena, the Braid Museum, it's like Mid-Antrim Museum, and down in Downpatrick, the county museum there, and like just going into the storerooms. And that was, both of those were through, I think the one in Ballymena was, I just emailed them and was like, can I come in, have a wee look at these? And they were like, yeah, sure. And then the county down one, I think, was one of my tutors knew someone who worked in it. But
what kind of objects are we talking about? Like, what?
Well, my favourite in see, this is where I just get a bit nerdy about it, because I really got like, someone totally stumped me one time, because with the degree show project, I was like, that's so interesting, and they've got all these like weird little objects, and it's so cool that they've got them like hidden away and wrapped up. And someone was like, is it though? And I was like, oh shit. I was like, I think it is. Like, they've got like, so my favourite is a really big pine cone.
How big?
Which, like this size, like it's like this, like,
just for anyone that can't see,
size,
it looks
bigger.
like the size of a normal pine cone to me. I'm not gonna
no,
lie.
it's like no, it's the biggest one I've seen.
Like a melon?
No, no, like
Like
this size.
bigger than a melon?
Like this, like actually sort of pint glass sized.
That's quite a normal pine cone.
I have never seen one that big in my life, apart from this one. But I love the idea that, like, because then I asked about it. I was like, why have you got this here? And the manager was just like, well, someone give it to us, so we have to take it. So someone was just like, I love the idea that someone was out on a walk and was like, look at the size of that pine cone, I'm going to give that to the museum. And they were like, thank you very much, I will give it a catalogue number, and we'll wrap it up in tissue paper and put it in this box.
That is quite satisfying.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I just really like that. Or there's like, you know, like coffee pots, teapots, sewing machines, just like little baby christening gowns, tights, people's tights.
Tights are quite creepy. Yeah.
Pipes as well. Just like
Random
like
shite.
everyday. I like that sort of like everyday idea of it, and then the not dramatic, like they're just the things you use every day that then, with the distance of like time, are suddenly important or will be important, even though you take them for granted at the time.
Well, obviously they didn't take the gigantic pine cone for granted, but I guess it's like the perspective with which you're seeing it. So you photographing the giant pine cone in the collection gives it a whole separate look and a whole separate relevance, which I guess actually fits really well with the project that we're going to talk about, in terms of me understanding more about what interests you. objects, I guess, taken from an original context and really...
Yeah, and that, I think with collections, it's definitely like a little bit of just really enjoying that kind of, or finding it just basically weird that people collect things and like give them little numbers and file them away and store them so like methodically. I just enjoy it.
Do you have the same relationship with like digital storage, like files in like spreadsheets? And...
I do love a spreadsheet.
Okay.
And I love a catalogue as well. Like I like a catalogue.
Like a well organised digital catalogue. Okay.
Is good too. I mean, there is definitely the physical side of it is important. Is like, because both I like some of the like some places in the museum would be quite old fashioned storage, which is like it's quaint and it's interesting. But I also really like the really clinical new stuff too, where it's all very like office furniture, and then it's got like I've got one of like it's a big like grey filing cabinet, and then it's got a set of deer antlers on the top.
Wow.
Which I just fucking love this place. Like, so that's my jam.
So just if other people were really like into that and wanted to get into that, would you then recommend that they like just contact local museums, ask to photograph the collection, and then that might end up leading them to get paid work in doing that? Because obviously collections do need to be documented.
Yeah,
that is
that's
an actual
another
job.
Yeah, because that's another thing that sort of came out from university was I didn't realise that there's so many jobs you can do with photography that aren't an artist. And like that's good. It means you can make your money. It means you can make money from your day job doing photographs as well as doing it for fun. So like collections photography is quite a big part of it. It's kind of still I find it a bit mysterious a little bit because I'll keep going. Because like it's hard to find. A lot of people don't necessarily advertise that that's what they do. I don't really know how they get in touch with. I think you do just like approach museums or collections. Or I did like whenever I was in Belfast, I found some people's websites and emailed them and was like, "Can I come along and shadow you while you're?" And there was one man that let me come and like shadow him while he did a couple of jobs. But be careful if you're doing it for free, obviously. But it can, I say that, but I do photograph in the University of Edinburgh Geology Museum, and that's a voluntary position, but it's because I really, really enjoy it. And also it's quite relevant to my own practice, so I feel like that's a fair like repayment.
As long as you're getting something from it, I guess it doesn't have to be money.
Yeah,
but as long
exactly.
as you're not dreading what you're doing and you're not getting paid, like, then
and it's not the kind of thing that like that's not a job that I'm taking from someone, because if I wasn't there doing it, it just wouldn't be done.
Yeah.
Because it hasn't been up until now.
Yeah.
So it's not like they needed someone to do it. It was more I got in touch with them and was like, "Can I come do this?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure, okay." I've got a lot out of it just being in that like the university environment.
Yeah.
And like the people I've met and that I've worked with, like Gillian that I work with in the museum, is really interesting to talk to and ask her loads of stuff, and it's just really nice to get that different kind of perspective as well, because like they're in their own wee weird academic sciencey world, which is insane. So it's quite nice to go for lunch with them and be like, what the fuck? What are you guys talking about?
And my final follow-up question on your little introduction is that you said that you worked at Stills, which we know is Edinburgh's photography gallery. I wondered if it might be worth you briefly giving some advice about people that are trying to get work in galleries. I know that I applied for your job and gave the absolute worst interview I've ever delivered, which actually still kind of gives me like horrible stress flashbacks. What do you think gave you the edge on that? Because actually, sorry to keep talking, but I think it was interesting knowing other people that applied for that at the same time as me. People without hospitality experience didn't get an interview, and I did, which I thought was interesting because it was the only time in my life that working my whole life in customer-facing roles actually, I think, did help.
Yes. I put that in my like I talked that up, like dealing with the public, because I had to, because I worked in cafes. Like it is a customer facing role, so you do get better at that than other people. So I think for this, it's a tough one because I don't really like. I think that what's the best way to approach it?
Sounds like you're trying to be very diplomatic.
I'm kind of thinking of I'm trying to like order my thoughts, but that won't work. So I'll just talk and see how it comes out. I don't think it's any coincidence that I was able to get a job in stills shortly after Peter got a promotion in his job. That meant it meant I could afford to take part-time work, and it meant I could afford to volunteer in stills beforehand, which obviously gives you good experience. Now I think stills is really careful and they're really good at not exploiting their volunteers. So you only have to sign up for like commit to a 2.5 hour shift, but it was still the first time I was able to do that, to commit to a 2.5 hour shift in the week. Was whenever I could go part-time instead of full-time in hospitality, and I think that did all like directly follow on from just not having to work 40 hours a week to pay bills anymore, and that's sort of depressing, but I don't know if it's sort of good as well that I managed to do it. Like, you can do it, but I think you have to be really careful of being between saying like, oh, it's possible, and also it's still really hard. Just because it's possible doesn't mean like anybody can do it, and you're just not working hard enough. That's not true. It's not like I was suddenly working harder or like I was suddenly more employable. It's just that I had the opportunity to. I could afford to make those decisions. I could afford to work as a temp, so that I had a flexible schedule, which meant I could do a volunteer shift, which meant I had the experience to get the job, And I think all of that, for me, it came from having more money coming in.
But I think that everything comes from a mixture of opportunity and circumstance and kind of luck. But the fact that you had a strong hospitality background was a benefit, and that's really encouraging. I think like the fact that I got an interview literally blew my mind, because it was the first time I'd ever actually considered the fact I might get a job that was related to photography, with an experience that was entirely within customer service.
And there is, it gets to a point where you think, when you're applying for these jobs in galleries and institutions, and like your last employment history is like 3 different cafes, and you just think, well, why would they look at me? But they do. Like, it's still worth doing. And I think some people don't put it on their CVs, and I don't think that's a good idea, because then it just looks like you haven't done anything. Like, be realistic. If they're really going to look at your CV and be like, oh, they worked in a cafe, no thank you, they can fuck off.
Yeah, you don't want to work there anyway. Exactly.
And it is useful. Having to deal with people all day, every day
it's
hard work, but I mean, you want to get something out of it, and what you get out of it is being able to smile and take it and bitch about them behind their back, which is useful.
A valuable skill.
Useful.
But that, I think, is really... Talking about volunteer work, I do think that voluntary, if you're in that situation where your paid position is not in the industry that you want to be in, generally in life, and you do want to in some way move into a different industry or kind of focus on a different element, as much as people slate volunteer work and unpaid commitments, because it is unfeasible that that's all there is, because you have to eventually pay people. But anything that you can do that is unpaid, that will support your existing skill set and your existing experiences, will only ever be viewed as a good thing. Yeah. And that can be the difference between you showing initiative in pursuing something and then getting an interview and someone that's not done that. Yeah. It's effort, because you do have to go above and beyond, your full-time job or whatever, but
I think anything that's less than 2 days a week, like 1 day a week, you can have a full-time job around that. Yeah. And it's hard, but you can do it. So
and it will hopefully only be temporary.
exactly, and it's worth it for the experience. I think that definitely the arts has a problem with voluntary work, and not paid, like unpaid internships can fuck right off, and anything that's like 4 days a week unpaid is ridiculous, and you should not go for that.
But it's only a very, very particular section of people that are going to be applying for
Exactly,
that. So
yeah.
it's like you're
But I
cutting
think
your
like
nose
you
off.
really like that is a problem. But if it's something that you can fit around full-time work, then give it a go. Because yeah, hopefully it'll be temporary, and you'll learn from it, and you'll get skills from it that make you more employable then in the future. But
and you'll be more valuable in that role
Yeah.
than someone that just does that and then sits on their ass the other 6
Exactly,
days of the week. Like
exactly.
you will have so much more to give.
Yeah.
So that, you know, yeah, that's a really good. Oh, my brain, sorry, my eyes have just gone really like kind of dizzy. But I should have ended that sentence, but I didn't know where to go with it. Yeah, fabulous.
So yeah, voluntary work is good, but keep it short.
You just be aware of your own boundaries
And what
of
you're
what
getting
you're
out of it.
prepared to do and what you think is
And if you
taking
think,
the piss.
I think as well, if you think if what you're doing should be a paid position, then don't do it for free.
Or tell them.
Yeah.
And invoice them.
Yeah.
Tell them and see if they'll pay you.
But there's a lot of stuff that, you know, like I do think, obviously I'm biased, but I think Stills handles it really well, where it's 2.5 hours a week, but then you get back from that, you get use of facilities, you get the odd spot on a course. Like I think that, for me anyway, that evens out, that balances out.
100%. Like the only reason that I am able to process my own film and print my own film is because I got to go on a free course.
Yeah.
100%. I wouldn't have ever bought myself that course. Like that.
Yeah.
That was a gift. And yeah, if you take those opportunities, you get way more than you're putting in. You get so much more, especially if you're using facilities, because...
Yeah, I know.
But, okay, fantastic, thank you. Thank you so much for listening. This has been Finding Focus. Thank you so much to Zoe for agreeing to come for a pint with me and talking about your project Control. Thanks also to Lawrence Turner for producing the lovely intro and outro music. And finally, just a really big apology to everyone for having to listen to that terrible audio quality in the pub. As much as I think it was a nice idea to record these in a pub, the sound issues are just way too troubling for me. So yeah, I appreciate everyone bearing with, and don't worry, lesson learned. If you do happen to have a spare half hour, then please stay tuned. The next episode is also with Zoe, and we're going to be talking a bit about her current work in progress titled Control.